Well, we're into another fish here at Kiverton Waters, doing a little bit of mini feeder fishing. And what I mean by that is fishing very tiny feeders, short rods, light lines, small hooks. It's a great way of catching fish like F1s and small carp, especially kind of stocky carp, that can be quite difficult to catch. They can be really scatty, and they don't always take the rods flying round as we've seen today. So let's get this one in. I'm just going to show you something that's won me quite a lot of money over the years, especially in like golden rod qualifiers and matches at places like Lindo and small venues. And that's typical of the fish we've been catching today at Kiverton Waters on, I think it's Lynn's Lake at the back. And it's only a small kind of water, but look at the fish in here. How nice is that? Look at the scales on that. Great big shoulders, great big apples on the side of it. It's a bit of a lively one, but let's get it back. I'm going to show you exactly how I've been fishing this tiny little pellet feeder today, which is a great tactic, especially in spring when we've still got this rain, wind, temperatures are low, and they don't necessarily want loads of bait, but they want the feeder chucked in regularly, and they want a little bit of pellet falling through, bit of noise. It's a great way of switching the fish on. I'm fishing a feeder today which has taken quite a bit of a back seat in the past decade or so, and that's a pellet feeder. And I'd say that probably 90% of people these days use either a method or a hybrid style, alloy, high frame kind of thing, a bit like that. And the reason I like a pellet feeder is because I think the bait only comes out from one side, and there's only that little side that fish can get at it. So if your hook bait's on that side and a fish is going to take like a whole mouthful of bait, then chances are it's going to get your hook bait as well. Whereas with a method feeder or a hybrid kind of thing, it's flat on top of it, it's all around it, and it can pick bits off the side. You've got bits falling around the sides, and it's a much greater area and spread of micros. And it also allows you to feed less bait, but a lot of regular. So instead of having a bigger feeder and ended up with piles of bait everywhere, you can just literally have a little kinder cup of pellets going in every pot, every cast. And when I used to do a lot of kind of mini feeder fishing at Lindham a long time ago, and we used to fish feeders like this weren't available, and we used to use method feeders, and I used to sort of half fill just the base of a method feeder with a tiny little hook length and an expander on. And I was always kind of trying to think, if I'm feeder fishing out there, how can I emulate what I do on a pole? Because like pole fishing with a little sprinkle pot with micros in winter is like the ultimate way of fishing for, like, you know, carp and F1s with pellets or maggots really. So I was trying to emulate that, and I didn't want a great big feeder, and I just wanted this tiny little bit, really tight, you know, so literally on a sixpence, as you would with a pole, with a marker. And that for me is the best way to emulate that. This is an inline matrix. It's only 18 grams as well, and that's the beauty of these little feeders. They don't weigh much, a lot of them. I mean, I very rarely use more than 20 gram unless I need to cast a bit further, or, you know, you've got an island shelf to hold on to. So yeah, a little light feeder. Added bonus of that, it makes a little plop. It's easy to cast. I mean, this lake's probably about 35 meters across, so you're only looking at 18-20 meters to get into the middle. So it's easy to cast a lighter feeder that distance than a great big one. So that's the thinking behind that. And something else that's really important with a pellet feeder, and this, when you're fishing for small fish that are a bit newly stocked fish especially, they don't always take the bait in, and no, they do take the bait in, sorry, but they don't always take your rod in, so they can sometimes be sat there chomp 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 without realising, and that's exactly what we've had today. So if you used a 4-inch hook length, which I actually started on, the bites were horrendous, and a lot of fish were, what I'd say, getting away with it. So where you're allowed, use, you know, for F1s and things, I'd use like a short 2 or 3 inch hook length It's been a 2-inch hook length today, just so we get more of a hooking effect on the feeder like that. That's a size 16 MXC3, which actually is more like an 18. So again, it's small hooks for these kind of small fish. They tend to you tend to miss less bites, and you tend to, especially float fishing. So on a feeder especially, it's easier for them to take a small hook in, and it's definitely been better today. So yeah, that's the actual feeder setup itself. Free running, of course, as most fisheries are. I'm going to show you as well. We start fishing again, hopefully get another. I'm just going to show you how I fill that up and my hook bait and things like that, because we've got some great baits to show you that just lend themselves perfectly to this style of easy, quick feeder fishing. Now with a pellet feeder, your first choice of bait is obviously going to be pellets. Now where I'm allowed, I'll use these. The new Squeeze Ready, we do an original, we do a new sweet one. And I've got no qualms about using these wherever I go. The real pellets, the real 2mm skretting types, done with a bit of sensate and a bit of water control. And they're just ready to go straight from the bag. I mean, here's one, this is what I've been using. I'll pour a few more out into my tub. And you know, just give them a squeeze like that. One squeeze, and that's straight on your method feeder, hybrid feeder, straight in your pellet feeder, cage, anything. So they're a really, really nice blown up pellet. And of course, they've got that sweet sensate in them as well, which makes them nice and sticky and gives them a really, you know, nice taste and smell, and gives off the sensate and the billions of attractants that come with it. It's proven, and it just works. It's just nice. I've got another mix here. I've actually put some of the sweet sensate liquid into that just to make it a little bit stickier, a bit more golden. If fish are really attacking the feeder, it just makes it a bit stickier and a bit easier. Just when they go a bit scatty and bait might be going everywhere, a bit of a stickier mix there, and it's just a bit lighter as well with a toffee colour. And those are my main two baits. There's ground bait there as well, Squeeze Ready ground bait. Again, you can probably use that later in the session, but for the early part I want to start on pellets, because pellets is like bread. It's instant and fish are just switched on to them. So hook bait wise, I mentioned earlier we've got a little short hook length here to ensure we can capitalise on all our bites and we don't get done. And you've got a couple of options here really. We've got wafters, we've got our sinkers here, which are light wafters. They're bright, but they're very heavy, and they go straight to the bottom and stay there, and they'll anchor a bit better. And today I've been fishing about an hour and a half, and I've definitely found that the heavier bait sort of anchored on the feeder, has caught more fish than a wafter, which is, you know, will waft about a bit. And I think that's maybe because of the smaller fish being quite aggressive. So that's just, and it's helped hook up as well, I think, the heavier bait. So you've also got the option of a, you know, straightforward band in a pellet. So I've got a little band on, and I'm just literally, I don't use a banding tool, I'm just literally using the bend of my rod to bend the band. You can just insert the band like that. And now with this Squeeze Ready, it's a really real simple job. It's like a scoop this, they call it scoop sometimes. You press it in with your thumb, you just press your little hook in there like that, and you get another layer on top like that, and just push it in with your thumb and clean it off. And as I say, that's a nice little pile of bait, and you can imagine that just breaking down around this area here, and that's going to concentrate the fish on that area rather than a much wider sort of 3 or 4 inch spread like a method. So that's very, very easy to use, straight out of the bag, squeeze ready. If you have to use fishery pellets, that's fair enough. You can soak up 2mm pellets, micras, normal squetting type micras. You can add a bit of sensate to those, you know, one of the dyes or the sweet, just to give you a bit of a boost and an edge, so it's different to everyone else's pellets that are going in the lake. And yeah, that's all you really need, really. Micras, and we've had some 4mm that have again had some sensate on them to fire in over the top, just to bring the fish in over a wider area into our peg. Let's get cast out again. So it's literally here, it's only a small lake. It's about an 18-19 metre chuck. And this is where a short rod, 9 foot, really comes into its own. And if you fish small venues for small fish, I mean, look, sort of less than, you know, £3 average, and you're serious about your fishing, I'd seriously invest in a 9 foot rod, because they just make things so much easier. And hopefully you'll see when I get another fish on just how easy it is to land them, and how it minimises, you know, hook pulls, and which can be a problem, especially with F1s and small stockies. They're very easily lost on the way in on a feeder. But sometimes, and like today, the feeder is the way to catch them. They seem to want to sit in the deepest kind of water away from the bank when it's clear, and perhaps they're shoaled up. They just want to get away from the bank a bit, and that's beyond the pole. So you're going to fish either a feeder or a waggler, and with the feeder obviously you've got that little tiny pile of micros. I'm using the fishery kind of pellets with a bit of sweet sensate on them, nice toffee colour. I'm just using them over the top every cast, just to draw a few fish in the general area, but I'm using my feeder to really nail them in place with that tight pile of micros, so really concentrate them there and get them on the hook. And it's taken a little, they're not, just because they're new fish, it doesn't mean they're easy to catch necessarily, and it's took a little bit of working out today. They were quite scatty earlier, and I've played about with my hook bait quite a bit, and I even tried some bigger feeders, which wasn't right. I've come back onto this 18 gram, and you can just see the tip kind of like that. And when you get a proper bite, earlier on, I think they've kind of wised up a bit now, but in the first sort of hour or so, the bites were tiny, and it was almost like they were, plus I was on a longer hook length, remember, they were almost like sat there with the bait in the gobs, not giving, you know, wraparounds and positive bites. So I had to wait on my hands a bit and just look for a rattle or a bit more of a deliberate pull, and then it was on. So it's not been, you know, straight in and on, but by sort of shortening my hook length a bit and putting a 6mm sinker on, which is sort of nailed more on, see, that's more deliberate, and that's on. And there's no need to, you know, strike, or just lift the rod and bend into the fish, and use that 9 foot rod and the bend in it just to your advantage. This is going quite slow. This is either I don't know if this is a bigger fish or a snag or something. It can't be a snag, surely. There might be some. No, there was something on top of its head, a bit of weed maybe or something, but this feels a little bit heavier. Again, you can see that 9-foot rod, just use the whole blank, just bend into it, especially with these smaller 18 hooks. Just keep it low until the last second, because at this stage, this is where a lot of kind of F1s and Carasio and little stockies are lost, especially with a feeder that's, you know, 30 grams or more. So when you're on an inline ruling, just use a nice light feeder that you can plop in. And I'm just going to start to lift the rod now. No, it's gone off on one. It's quite clear water. And here it comes. It's trying to do me in the weeds. But, you know, I don't like to rush too much with these fish because it's very easy to pull out of them. And there we go. Another beautiful fish. Great big shoulders again. Watch the camera. Nicely hooked there. Bottom of the top lip. And you could just imagine one of them sat in a carp angler's arms in France, weighing about 40 or 50 pound. Lovely scales, great big shoulders on it. And Kiverton now is absolutely full of these, I'm told. All the 3 lakes here, there's been some big weights in matches, and bear in mind we're in sort of not even mid-July yet. July? This is what I'm up against, folks. March, sorry folks. If it were July we'd be laughing, wouldn't we? So we're mid-March. And yeah, water's still cold, but there's been weights to about 170 pound, I think. So of these kind of new fish on some of the other lakes, but we're on a lake here that's not necessarily fished that much yet, so they're still getting to know what bait is. And when it's like that, I think micros are a great bait. They're very easy to fish, for fish to suck in. Light, small, and all kinds of fish love these squeeze ready sweet micros. I think with the sweetness as well, it's a bit colder water. Sweet is a great flavour for catching in the cold. There you go, you get just that nice short rod as well. With this 9-foot rod, your feed is a bit lower to the ground in the water when you cast in, so it's not going up and down and landing in a great heap. You just cast in with quite a low trajectory. So definitely use a 9-foot rod when you're on these smaller venues, or even if you're having to fire a bait under a tree, something that's overhanging. A short rod casts really hard with like a low trajectory of a cast. I think that's on already. You're joking. I didn't get a chance to feed that time. So it just comes straight to that little plop and that tight pile of pellets. Got a bench on the far bank, about a lake and a half away, that I'm using as a marker, and I'm just literally chucking to that every time and keeping that little pile of micros plopping in, and a few kind of 4mm fishery pellets over the top. And it's just a great way of fishing. It's just busy, you're not leaving the feeder out long. And I use as well, you'll see I'm using both I'm a bit weird, I use the clutch and the back wind. I like a combination. I just like the clutch fairly loose. And so if the fish wants to dart off, it can. And then when I want to give a bit of line here at the net, I've got the back wind on as well, can do that. Top lip that time. Again, like peas in a pod. Lovely. Really, really good sport here at Kiverton Waters on the mini feeder. And away. Right, I've been on one last cast for the last 10 casts. So this has got to be the last casts. Just a little plop in. The Catchmore Chief, Tom, has just asked me a question which is quite interesting. He says, what would you do different for F1s with this kind of fishing? And I think the answer would be to fish a little bit finer. I think you can get away with slightly heavier lines for carp. So I think we've got like about 0.16, 0.18 on. It's about 5 or 6 pound. I'll probably be fishing about 4 pound for F1, so about 0.14. Again, probably a similar hook. Just because you just need that little bit more finesse, but you can still get a carp out on 0.14, no problem if you take your time. And the other thing I'd use, I think, especially when it gets really cold, sometimes put ground bait in a pellet feeder as well, or mix pellets with ground bait. And you can catch, pellets is a great instant bait, chuck in, wallop, for a certain amount of time sometimes, and then sometimes the fish can become full up and preoccupied with them a bit, and then you can get a ground bait out. And we do a squeeze ready ground bait as well. We do a sweet one, or you can use a more fish meal normal one, it's up to you. But yeah, definitely a darker kind of mix. And especially when it gets really cold in dead of winter, ground bait in a pellet feeder can be really good with just a few micros in for F1s. And it just gives them less choice basically. They've got more chance of picking your hook bait, and doesn't fill them up. But again, it's the same principle. You'd cast around looking to find the fish, and it's easy with a small feeder. Today we found them bang in front of us, right in the middle of this little bowl here. I've chucked up to that island there, but the fish have definitely been in the deeper water in the middle here. For whatever reason, it's clearer, I don't know, but they didn't want to be up to that island. So as I say, if I was in a match, I wouldn't have done any harm to the peg by just chucking a little feeder in to try and find them, whereas you probably would with a method or a hybrid. So that's gone again. This has got to be the last fish. It's coming in quite easy, this one. Keep that rod low. A few more winds. And I didn't get that in time. See, this is what happens when you don't quite get them in time, they go berserk. There we go. So I think we'll make that the last one of the day. It's been a great few hours. Just doing a bit of filming here today at Kiverton Waters, Lynn's Lake. Loads of fish like that. If you want a few bites, this has been taken over by the Embryo Project. She's doing a great job nationwide of rejuvenating fisheries, putting loads of fish in like that, and generally just, improving them and looking after them properly. And yeah, get down here or get anywhere with a small venue like this where there's smaller carp and F1s that are hiding just beyond the range of a pole. Get a little feeder like that on your short rods, 9 foot, 10 foot, light tips, small hooks, a few micros. Of course, I'm going to say the squeeze ready range, but you can use pretty normal ones with a bit of sensating as well if it's fishery. And get that chucked in regularly, keep it going, plopping in gently, and you can get loads of bites just like we have today.